Over the past few days I've been doing a Swords and Wizardry campaign using this book and a bit of King's Bounty and a few other things. I'm just going to do a brief video to show you how it's working. Now, the King's Bounty events book is really useful for any kind of location you might find yourself in when you just want something interesting to possibly happen. For instance, these characters on their way to this dungeon are travelling through the woods, so I'm going to roll on this table to find out if anything happens. That's a 7. While winding through a maze of forest growth, you stumble upon a clearing, at the centre of which is a large stone slab. Lying upon the slab is a huge minotaur. The beast takes notice of your entrance and rises to his feet, wielding a large battle axe. Save against both your spirit and your skill to flee out of the forest maze, or fight the minotaur with anything at your disposal. Oh boy. That's really awful. Yes, a minotaur isn't even on my radar for these first level characters. 6 hit dice is just ridiculous. So they're going to run away. So they're on their way to a dungeon which they've been to before, so they shouldn't even have gone off the beaten track. So they're going to run for it and avoid this fight. So on that occasion, the King's Bounty events table wasn't very useful because it threw up something bizarre. But usually it can be very interesting. I had several attempts at this dungeon with these characters, and they've got thus far. They have to keep leaving to heal up because they get into fights. So I don't know if that's normal or if I'm playing particularly badly. But I'll put a link to the blog I wrote about this, and it gives you the backstory if you're particularly interested in finding out how we've reached this point. Basically, Fergor set off from his home village to meet up with his sister, and had a fight with a couple of goblins, came to a town, met up with a companion with whom he went out to carry on his journey because he figured he needed extra help. They came across a trail of coins leading to a dungeon in the woods, which is this one. They got to here, they got attacked by powerful monsters, and they were both sort of killed. Then Fergor's sister, Melissa, she came to find him because he hadn't shown up when he was supposed to, with 3 companions. They found him here with his companion. They were both sort of dead. The thief got knocked out, the cleric got killed. They managed to defeat the monsters in this room. They got out, got to a temple, and resurrected almost everyone. It was just Fergor's companion that didn't survive the resurrection process, but everybody else is just fine. So they're coming back to try and conquer the dungeon again. They managed to get here on their next attempt, and they had to retreat because Fergor in particular got very badly wounded. So they're going to try to explore further into the dungeon. Now, at each section of the dungeon, I have a chart where there is an 18% chance of a wandering monster in a passage. So these were all rolled up as separate sections. So on the first section they're travelling through and it's 41, so there's no wandering monsters there. Next section is 98, no more wandering monsters there. This final passage they've got to so far, and that is 68, so there are no wandering monsters. They've managed to reach as far as they got to before. They haven't done this bit yet, obviously, so now they're going to find out what happens beyond that. I've had this book for a long time and I've not really got into reading it, but I do like the photos of the miniatures in the middle. But it's basically a role-playing system and a battle system. But the interesting part for me, which I found recently, is a dungeon generation table. So it basically makes the adventure for me. So what I want to do now is to figure out what the next part of the passages are going to be like. So we have a 76, and that is a T-junction, 30 feet each way. I'm going to check if there are any monsters in this section. 68, no. I think we're going to go this way, but I need to check if there are any doors in this part of the dungeon. 50%. That's 78, there are no doors in this section. Okay, I think we'll go this way. Head towards the centre of the dungeon. So the next passage is a 24, which is a straight natural 60-foot long passage. So are there any monsters? No. It's 95. Are there any doors? Yes, there are. There are 1 to 3 doors, I think. So I'll roll my d3, and there are 2 doors. So everyone is going to listen at the south door. I think that's fair. And nobody hears anything. So they're going to listen at the north door. Oh, this really matters. So they can hear noises in the north door. So I think I'm going to check out this south door first. So, what kind of room is it? 48. It is a rectangular room, 60 by 15. Okay. There's a 50% chance of monsters. 42, there is a monster. So my room monster chart is a 1d20. That's an 11. That is a giant rat, 1 to 6 giant rats. So we have 5 giant rats. So I'll look in Swords and Wizardry and sort out their stats. So what kind of room was this? It's a 7, which is... It was a dining room. That's probably what's attracted the rats. That's a bit more like a dining room. Okay, now what are we going to do? In terms of initiative, I'm using the dexterity rules. So the rats roll 11, 12, 13, 14, 14 for their dexterity. So that's when they will activate ordinarily. And then we just follow dexterity order downwards. So Lance and Morris, the fighter and thief, both have missile weapons. Their dexterity is 13, but we have the advantage at this point. And they're both going to try and hit the rats. I'm doing the ascending armour class rule, so they need to roll 12 plus. But Lance gets a +1. So Lance rolls first. He misses, and Morris hits, and he rolls 1d6. 4. Now, I guess it doesn't matter which rat we go for. Let's go for rat number 4. He has been defeated. And I'll write down that Morris killed him for experience. Now, what else can we do? Melissa has a magic missile spell ready, but we're not going to waste that on rats. So, the melee guys will dash in. I think it'd be unrealistic for the cleric to be able to reach that one already, but Fergal will have a go. He gets +1. Rolling for a 12, and he misses. Now we start the turn proper, because that was their surprise action. So the rats, I think, have the highest dexterity. So they get to go first. I guess number 3 will attack Fergal, who has an armour class of 14. and he misses. Number 1 may also come in attack, I guess. And a big miss. Okay, these two guys are going to come in. Number 5 will attack Jeremiah the cleric. His armor class is 17. And the rat misses. And number 2 attacks Lance, whose armor class is 18. Yep. Okay, so this is a nice, hopefully easy combat, which my guys perhaps won't lose. Now we're going down to Dex 13, which is Lance and Morris. I think Fergal has a Dex of 10. So Lance will attack with his sword. And he hits. And it was a 7. So number 2 is gone. Now then, Morris, what's he going to do? He's going to come in here and attack this one, which is number 3. And that's a miss. Now Fergal is going to attack number 3. And he misses. Then we have Jeremiah, who is over here. He hits big time. And that is rat 5. 2 damage. So that rat is down to 1. And then we have Melissa. She's going to wade in with her staff. Why not? And she hits. And that's a 5. He is done. And one thing in Swords and Wizardry is that the morale is down to the DM's decision or the referee's decision. So you don't get a neat little mechanic to decide the morale. So I'm just going to say that these rats are going to carry on fighting. Perhaps they're particularly hungry. So number 1 will attack Fergal. Number 3 will attack Morris. He misses Fergal, and Morris has an AC of 13. And he gets hit by the rat. Okay, and their bite is 1d3. That's 2. Morris loses 2 hit points. And there's 1 in 20 chance that this bite is diseased, so on a 20, let's say. 17. Okay. So Morris gets to attack this number 3 rat. And he hits. What does he have? He has a sword. 8. Yep. That rat is dealt with. And finally, Fergal attacks the number 1 rat. Well, hopefully finally. Yeah, I think so. 2 points of damage. Okay, that rat is down to 1 hit point. And I think Jeremiah is going to wade in. Try and finish it off. Before it does any more damage. He misses. And Melissa. And she rolls. And defeats the final rat. Now I'll just quickly check if there are doors in the room. There's a 50% chance. 76, no, there are no other doors. So now I'm going to roll on the loot table. I mean, obviously the rats wouldn't have been carrying anything with them, but there might be something lying around in a room like this. So I'm going to roll a d10. And that's a 1. There's actually nothing. If there's a treasure card or a dungeon card or a gear card, I could take one of these from Warhammer Quest, the adventure card game, and these may or may not be taken from Hero Quest, you never know, do you? So that's what we would take if one of those results had come up. So we're back out into the passage after that room, and we find that the next section is a slope down 60 feet. There's a 50% chance of doors, 55 no, and an 18% chance of wandering monsters, 37. So we will carry on exploring with this and see where I get to. I've been really enjoying Swords and Wizardry. It's a really nice retro clone based on the original game from the 70s by Gary Gygax and Dave Arnefson. And there are also some nice additions like the Ascending Armour class you can use if you want. Lots of options like that, so you can change things up a bit to tailor the game to exactly what you want. It's about 100, maybe about 140 odd monsters if you include all the dragons and all the demons and all the elementals, so there's plenty to play with there. I'm using quite low level monsters because my characters are quite low level, and I find that they tend to die quite easily, so I don't want to put anything too powerful in front of them because several of them have died already. And the dungeon generation system in this book is really neat. I mean, there's dungeon generation systems you can find online. The ones in Advanced Hero Quest were quite good, but these are really handy. Add a bit of flavour and just basically build the dungeon as you go, so you never know what's coming. Now, I've always fancied the idea of doing a solo game on In Search of the Unknown or Keep on the Borderlands, but that might be more challenging because you have this vast map to explore, and you sort of know what's coming, but I might be able to make it work. It's just not quite as easy as this, and this is a nice surprise because you never know how the dungeon's going to turn out. And if you just pick and choose the monsters that you want your guys to face and stick them on a chart, then it makes it a bit of a surprise for you. And this book in King's Bounty is really good, despite the crazy Minotaur event that came up. But if your guys are in a city, they can roll a city event. For instance, 31. A messenger arrives in town spreading the news that bounty has been offered for another fugitive. Draw any fugitive and put it on its last seen location. Well, that's particularly specific to King's Bounty, but you could easily roleplay that and say, a bandit has taken refuge in a nearby building just outside the town, and there's a reward offered for his capture, so you send your guys out to capture that bandit. You've got forest and woodland, you've got desert, you've got mountain, and marsh and swamp, and even this stuff. Rivers and ocean, and sort of seaside events. The sweet sound of a mermaid singing lulls the crew of your ship into a deep trance. Unless you save against your spirit, the music charms you as well. If your save fails, your ship is dashed against a sharp reef and sunk. Oh dear. So, when I did my video about King's Bounty, I was looking at it as a sort of board game that's a bit like Roombound, but not quite as good. But really, it's much more of a light role-playing game. And if you look at it like that, it's a lot more appealing. And this book's really useful for any role-playing game, because when you don't have a games master or a referee, then you need something to spice it up and take you somewhere where you wouldn't have thought of going, and so that's really, really useful. It's also handy to use things, obviously, from other games like Warhammer Quest, the adventure card game. So you've got all sorts of things you could find and events in this deck. You've got war gear in this deck. Shield, a dagger, crossbow. And some treasure cards. You could use charts for your treasure, but you know, it spices things up a bit. Quest Time of Heroes has some good item cards as well as really good location cards, which I've mentioned on another video. But this campaign's one I'm really enjoying. So thanks for watching.